lasts probably around 6 months, and we generate a couple of dozens of targets for them, and some of them were really outside of the box. Let's say they are outside of the main mining area, outside of the type of rock they're usually exploring for.
Good morning and welcome to another episode of The Crownsman Show. This is actually a very special episode as we are here to support Mining for Miracles, which is actually brought to you by Savannah Equipment and Riscope. Crownsman Partners is proud to announce that 50% of the sponsorship will be donated to Mining for Miracles. And in this episode, we are featuring Marc-Antoine Laporte, who is the Global Business Manager of Geological Services at Sgs Global. And he will be unpacking their service offerings, including the application of machine learning to exploration targeting, resource estimating, mine audits, project due diligence, 3D modeling, along with highlighting projects around the world to give examples of these services. But before we get started with the episode, we would like to actually bring on the co-chairs of Mining for Miracles, Carla Mills and Stephen Kraus, to talk a little bit more about Mining for Miracles. Good morning, Carla and Stephen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So how are you guys doing?
Well, I'm doing well. It's actually my first full day back into my office here in downtown Vancouver. So it's a bit of a change, but doing well and actually enjoying the comfort of my standard work chair, which is way comfortable than the one I've been sitting on for the past couple of months. Yeah, no, well here.
No,
that's great.
I'm also in the office this morning. I have 3 young kids at home, so we fight over bandwidth at home often. So it's nice to have a dedicated line here at the office.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, let's get started. Carla, if you could start us off with talking to us a little bit more about Mining for Miracles and what they do.
Sure, happy to. So Mining for Miracles is a really great example of the generosity and community spirit of the mining industry. Every year since 1988, regardless of the market conditions, thousands of people, women and men across the sector dig in their wallets and donate to support children of British Columbia and Yukon. Today, after 33 years, Mining for Miracles has raised over $33 million in support of children's health. As a result of that, there's literally thousands of people now that live in every corner of our province who are healthier and in some cases have had their lives saved because of the work of our industry. I think it's a tremendous legacy for the mining industry, as well as for specifically the women and men who work in the province across this industry. I really do think it's a great example of the industry and the great things. One of the greatest things, about this initiative is that it really is the absolute entire industry that contributes. It brings together everyone from the most junior prospector through the big operating companies and everyone in between. So the banks who finance the industry, the suppliers who provide all the goods and services that support the mine operations, pretty much anyone who touches any aspect of the mining industry each year gets together and supports this initiative to raise funds for our children of our province and the BC Children's Hospital.
Wow, that is wonderful. Stephen, can you talk about what a normal year of fundraising looks like for Mining for Miracles and how the current situation has affected that?
Sure. A normal fundraising year looks very different than what this year looked like because of a lot of our key events are in May and had to be canceled. But our biggest fundraising events or our signature event would be the pie throw competition. And this is an event that usually takes place in May of each year. And it's an event where we invite companies throughout BC and not just mining companies, but service providers that are associated with the mining industry to participate. And we have individuals that participate, and these individuals are matched up with a competitor or a friend, and they go head to head to raise money for the pie throw. And what happens is whoever raises the most amount of money between these two individuals gets to throw a pie at the other individual's face. So these pies become very expensive because there's often a lot of money raised by these people reaching out to their networks. So that event alone, we almost always consistently raise over $1 million in that event alone each year. So that was a sorely missed event that we didn't have this year. And on top of the pie throw, we have a few other signature events. One of them being the diamond draw, and probably many of your listeners are aware of that one if they've ever attended Roundup or any other mining events in BC. We have volunteers that go out there and sell diamond draw tickets at these events, and it gives people the opportunity to win an $18,000 diamond package. And
Wow.
all these funds go to the hospital. In fact, my wedding anniversary is in 25th wedding anniversary is in 3 years. So I've told my wife that that's the way that she's going to get her diamond. But so far, I've lucked out for the last 3 years in winning that. And so there's a bunch of companies that participate in this, and that diamond and that package is brought together and donated by our sponsors, being Tech, C3 Alliance, and Cost and Capaloo. And all the money there goes directly to the hospital as well. Another event we have is the online auction, and again, that's something that we have in May usually, and raise a considerable amount of money for that as well. Another key event that we have is a Hooked on Miracles event, and this is where mining companies and suppliers come together each year in Tofino and raise funds for the hospital. And the last event that we have is Gene Up, and that's formerly known as Jeans Day, and that's exactly like it sounds, a day where we sell badges so that people can wear jeans in the office. So those are our main events that we have each year, but with COVID, unfortunately, the events that we usually plan to have in May and June got canceled, which is the pie throw, the online auction, and also the Hooked on Miracles events. But unfortunately, we had to cancel these ones, but we were still able to raise over $1 million. So it shows you the generous support of the mining community here in BC that comes together each year, regardless of commodity prices, and finds a way to support such a wonderful cause as BC Children's Hospital Foundation.
Right. Yes, absolutely. I definitely want to get in on that diamond draw for sure.
The bad part about the diamond draw this year was the individual that won it actually didn't even know she was in the draw. Somebody had bought her ticket for her and put her name on it, and we pulled it. We called her. She was completely shocked. She didn't even realize she was actually in the draw.
Wow.
So it was actually an extra bonus.
For sure. I would. Wow. Definitely. Stephen, how does Mining for Miracles choose what cause to fundraise for?
It's really cool, actually. For the last 33 years, the mining industry has rallied behind Mining for Miracles. So that's an important cause for everybody in the mining community. And in terms of what areas at the hospital we support, what's unique about Mining for Miracles is, as an industry, we work with the hospital to choose an initiative that we're going to fund. So we get together with the hospital and we combine our expertise and review a bunch of different initiatives, and just realize that they're all just incredible, and recognize that each one of them has the ability to really save lives and benefit lives of children right here in our province. So we come together, look at all these initiatives, and then we choose one to support. And really, there's no way that we could ever go wrong in choosing an initiative, because they're all really about children here in BC.
And Carla, can you tell us where the donations are going this year and why it's so important?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So in January, we announced our new funding commitment, which is to raise $3.385 million to establish BC Children's Hospital's, it's called the Cellular and Regenerative Medicine Center, or what we like to call CRMC, because it's quite a mouthful. It's the first of its kind in Western Canada. The CRMC will give clinicians at BC Children's the tools to better understand genetic causes of heart arrhythmias, so that they can provide the best possible care for the children in British Columbia. What the CRMC can do is it'll improve diagnoses, it'll identify the optimal treatments, and in some cases potentially cures, improving and saving lives of children across the province, really and beyond. In the future, subsequent phases of CRMD we'll use the initiative to provide answers to the thousands of children also living with other conditions like diabetes or cancer, bowel disease, and epilepsy. So it is quite far-reaching and it's long-standing. So we're really excited funding the initiative.
Wow. Yes, I'm very. I think it's a wonderful cause, and what Mining for Miracles is doing. Where can people go to support Mining for Miracles?
Do you want me to take that, Stephen?
Sure, take that one.
Yeah, you bet. So Mining for Miracles has its own website, so you can certainly go there, miningformiracles.com, and you can donate at the website. You can show up at any sort of mining event across British Columbia, and oftentimes you'll find us selling diamond draw tickets, but you can also buy diamond draw tickets online. And then when we get to the buy throw event, you can donate to the individuals who are participating in pie throw and help them be the winner and the thrower of the pie as opposed to the receiver of the pie. So definitely many options.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Carla and Stephen, for joining us. And thank you to our sponsors as well, Savannah Equipment and Riscope. Again, both companies, they were confirmed right away once they heard that we were also partnering with Mining for Miracles. And we really appreciate that they came on to support Mining for Miracles. Again, thank you so much, Carla and Stephen, for coming on and giving us a little insight on what Mining for Miracles is doing.
It's our absolute pleasure. We appreciate the effort and the contribution of those sponsors. That's so wonderful. We are so grateful.
Yeah, I echo Carla's comments there as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Please remember and take a moment to visit miningformiracles.com where you can make a donation and make a difference. Now, let's head on over to episode 50 with Marc-Antoine Laporte.
Welcome to the Crownsman Show. I am your host, Jared Downey, and this is actually round 2. You don't get to see round 1 because we had some technical difficulties, but Marc-Antoine Laporte from SGS is back with us to talk about the geological services SGS offers, and as well as cover some other topics, of course. So thank you for joining us. Thank you, Marc, for coming back on our show.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you very much for having me back on the show.
It was, it's the nature of when you're doing everything remotely. You're going to have a couple technical difficulties, and you were lucky enough to be the one that it landed on. You know, it's been a crazy time. I mean, right now, I mean, as we're filming this one kind of mid-May, and then we'll be in kind of June, it'll probably get released. But as it stands right now, I mean, there's still no travel, anything like that. And I mean, SGS is, I mean, how large is the company? 40,000 employees or something?
Actually, we're close to 94,000 employees right now.
94,000?
Yeah, on 2,600 different offices and labs around the world. So we pretty much service 95 different countries in the world.
Wow. But now SGS, a lot of the service offerings are considered essential services. So there is, I mean, it's still very much operational during these kind of times, right?
Yes, you're totally right. Even with the actual situation, we are essential services, mostly on the testing and certification side of the business. So we are lucky enough to keep a very good level of work around the world in different countries. It's really, really depending from countries to countries with lockdown and restriction, but we are quite lucky to be essential services. I have to say that.
So a company like, I mean, does a giant memo go out with, I mean, how do they even communicate to 94,000 people how things are going to operate in country to country, or is it by division? So leaders from each country then sort of figure out what the rules and regulations and everything are, and then distribute it just within country? Obviously, there's not much travel going on, or is there still travel and everything like that happening?
You know, we are a global company, but of course, the company is subdivided in business lines. So we have 11 different business lines that take care of different sides of the business, and each business line has presence in different countries. So the way it works, so we have, of course, global rules that we need to follow in a situation like the one that we have at the moment. But everything it's going down from the business line and from the country. So even in the same country, business don't have the same restriction depending on if they work in arbor facilities, if they work on with chemicals in laboratories, or they have any contact with customers on a regular basis. So
Right.
actually, the manager in countries get a lot of decision to take regarding the restriction where they operate. So, but it's very well. We have actually the business line take care of themselves individually outside of the global advice that I'll need to follow.
It's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing what big companies, individuals, small businesses, governments have had to do. It's unprecedented, to say the least. I want to move into a little bit about what SGS offers. Now, of course, you're on the geological services side, but just, I mean, there's inspection, testing, certification. I mean, it just goes on and on. Can you sort of walk us through, just on a whole, what SGS is offering? A lot of people who watch us are going to know, but there's going to be a certain portion of people that don't. So just that general service offerings across all industries that SGS is providing.
Yeah, sure. So let's say SGS is the biggest certification, testing, and inspection company in the world. So like I said before, we have 11 business lines that are actually cover almost every type of operation and business around the world. So from the mineral business, oil and gas industry, life science, construction, trade, automobile industry, as well as environmental safety and security purposes. So we offer, of course, the testing, we certify, and we inspect different type of products and different type of operations. But we also offer some very niche services, like for our life science, when it's quite keen in this day and age. So we do a lot of work on drugs and vaccines, and then we help actually countries to regulate what they have in import export inside a country. We also offer very cutting edge traceability system when we try to trace back the raw material from where they actually came from, like the woods.
Oh.
From deep in the Brazilian jungle and up in deep in the African jungle. So just to be sure that we have what people use for building the final products, it's actually come from reliable sources.
Wow, pretty amazing. And I always find the story of how these companies, I mean, they've been around. SGS has been around since 1878. And I mean, they started, didn't they start in grain or something like that back in Europe?
Yeah, actually, it was founded in 1878, like you said, as a grain inspection company out of Rouen in France, by actually a Latvian immigrant that created the company 142 years ago. And they keep that services for the first, let's say, couple of decades of existence. They start to diversify a little bit early in the 20th century. They moved from France to Geneva during the First World War, and they really, after the war, that they decided to really attack other business and then become actually a global company, and is never stopped growing since then. So, but we really start as a small grain inspection company.
Yeah, it's amazing. And then now zooming into your division, what is geological services? Again, a lot of people are going to be watching this out of the mining, but a lot of people will be watching from other industries too. So what's a snapshot of the geological services, which you head up as the business manager there?
Okay, so geological services is part of the mineral business line. So mineral business line is cover every type of services we offer to the mining industries, from testing, trading, up to actually the certification of the final product. And geological services, it's the division that take care of the consultancy for our clients regarding everything related to the geological work, from the very early exploration field up to the mine closure and the processing of the final ore. So basically, we offer that actually link to the client, so we can follow them and offer very a turnkey operation for a client, from the first boot on the ground up to the final product that they're going to sell on the market.
When you say turnkey, Marc, you're saying from a safety perspective or an operational, how the mill is set up? I mean, what level is SGS entering, or is it top to bottom? Like even the equipment that they're putting in?
Yeah, actually, it's on an operational point of view. So we're not yeah, I'd say that there's some point that we not cover 100%. Like we talk about equipment, so we're not actually an equipment provider. So we're not going to design truck fleets or conveyor belt or anything like that. But what we're doing as a turnkey operation, so we offer the client to manage their project. So from the first design of their exploration project, so we discover, so the drilling, the geophysics, the geochem on the field, and after that we move along to put the project doing resource and reserve, doing the economic assessment of the project, the pre-feasibility study, and we continue to go along the client on all those steps up to actually when we have an economic deposit. So we are also offer services to client to design their processing plan, do the mining engineering, and offer finally the metallurgical testing to actually be sure of the quality of the ore. And we up to the end of the chain. So we are also going to certify the trading final products that they're going to sell on the market. So we can actually very be with our clients on every step of the way, from the first one to the last one.
And then, so on your side, what level are you involved? Are you part of that whole system, or in geological services, do you lean more on the exploration side, or does everything get covered under that?
We cover almost everything in geological services. So let's say that we stop probably at the feasibility study. So when a mine actually get all the feasibility study done, so we have all the exploration work done, the metallurgical testing done, the mining engineering, the processing. So we actually cover all of this in geological services. So when, let's say, when the mine is ready to start the construction, start producing, this is really basically where we stop. So we're not extremely active on the when they're producing material. We can help them in the producing side when actually they need to optimize their process. So when they actually have some production problems, or new challenges, so we can help them along the way as well.
I want to talk a little bit about this, the application of machine learning for exploration targeting. You notice that I have to read that because I didn't even want to try just saying it, but I think we've got a bit of a graph that we can bring up. Can you talk a little about it? It's terminology that you hear a lot about in the industry, but again, you kind of hear it in passing, and of course there's talks and stuff you can go to at private events. But what are we talking about when we talk about machine learning in the industry, especially in your division?
Okay, so first thing first, machine learning is a part of what we call the artificial intelligence field. So machine learning is really the way that we can train algorithm with existing data sets to be able for them to identify pattern in different type of data. So it was used in the computer science industries for decades and decades, but it's pretty recent that we use that in the mining industries. And for us, our journey started about 5 years ago when we entered a global challenge that was the Integral Gold Rush Challenge that was put together by a company that have a huge amount of historical information, but not really the time or the staff actually to look at the data sets and create a targeting exercise for it. So we entered that challenge, but with a different way of seeing things. So let's say we want to think outside of the box, do something differently. And why not using that machine learning technology? Because this data sets, we usually as a geologist, we look at the data on each separate way. So we look at geochemistry in one way, geophysics in one way, and we have difficulties to integrate all of those data because of the size mostly. But the computer don't have the limitation. So we get that idea, so using well-known algorithm that was used from decades by computer sciences, and see, can we apply that to our industries? And we actually get very good result, and we won the challenge at the end because our targeting was highlighting real targets. And that for us opened a new way of doing things. So, and for our client as well. So a client can see the possibility to have a new tool in the toolbox to be more efficient and discover the next generation of deposits.
And now, okay, and now go into the resource estimates, because now you're talking about being able to essentially gather and read data, and now going into the resource estimate. Can you break that down a bit? Because I mean, obviously, that's where it all starts, is being able to identify where the value is in these in these areas. So can you talk a little bit about that? Again, we've got another graph that we could bring up and just walk us through what that is.
Yeah, sure. The resource part of a project, I think it's probably one of the key turning point of an exploration project. So that's really where we are going to see if we have a real potential. So because the resource estimate, it's the point in time when we have enough information from drillings and from surface work to try to put volumes and grade on a specific commodity. So now we have a 3D idea of the deposits, and we actually have a very good idea of actually the quality and the quantity we have on hand. And this is really the point when a company will decide, okay, so do I have actually a deposit that look good enough to be economic, and I'm going to invest more money to actually do more work and go to the hoping to actually get an operating mine at some point. So that's really a turn, it's the most important turn, I guess, in every project. So it's when we start to do those resources. And after that, those resources, of course, they are numbers, but we need to put economic on top of those numbers. But if you don't have the grades and the volume, so you already know that it's not going to be an operating mine in the future.
But you're still doing this within an operational mind as well, right? This applies to when you're first starting out, but also when a mine is exploring a new area or wants to optimize their resource extraction in a specific area, right? It does go in operational or pre, right?
Exactly. So we always keep this in mind that we need to create actually money out of the rock. So this is what exploration is. So it's turning money into rock. I quote an article from the 80s, but this is what it is. So we need to keep in mind, so where we are in the world. So is it going to be possible to operate? Do we have actually infrastructure close by? What's going to be the cost to put the infrastructure? So we always start project and do project in the ideas that need to be possible to build an operating mine and to do profit out of it.
It sort of all dovetails together nicely, and going on to the next topic that I wanted to bring up was mine audits. And I wanted to get right off the bat, when you're talking about a mine audit, which you'll sort of break down what that is, but is that done? Is the mine operator asking you to come in and do that? Is it sometimes a third-party thing? How does that work to get SGS to come in and do a full-scale mine audit?
Usually, there's two situations that we're actually going to do mine audits. So sometimes it's asked by government because they want to be sure actually that all the mine is operate. So they ask a company like SGS as a third party, as an independent third party, which is very important, to go to the mine and do an audit of almost everything. So up to the resource reserve, to the process, to the mining plan, so everything that we can audit and report back to government saying, okay, so this is what we find, and you can look if it's exactly what we expect from that mine to produce and the way you operate. Could be on the safety side as well.
Right.
But you'd say a lot of our audits, it's asked by the client because, everything is good on paper when we operate a mine, but when you start to work with real rock and facing real challenges on a day-to-day basis, so sometimes everything is not as it was supposed to be on paper. So you need to optimize the way you're doing things as you're going down to the mining, to your mine lives. So they ask us, okay, can you go on site, guys? And we're supposed to have more grade, or we're supposed to have actually recover more than what we are doing at the moment. So can you see where actually where we're missing something? So what can we improve to reach the number that we're supposed to have regarding the study that we did before we opened the mine? So that's the biggest mindsets of the audit. So it's really to help the client to be more efficient in his day-to-day operation.
Yeah, I find it so interesting that, I mean, it's you just don't realize. I mean, the more you learn about the mining industry, the more you'll see how many moving parts there are to every mine. And I think a lot of people that are watching this that aren't part of the industry will be amazed at how much actually goes in from a third party to go into an operational mine. And the other one is due diligence. I mean, you hear about due diligence in every area of industry, but in mining specifically, what is SGS doing in the due diligence side? Is that sort of everything tied together and bringing it together, or is that a completely separate thing from mine audits and resource assessments and everything like that? Or is that all kind of tied into that?
I say that what we're doing during a due diligence is quite similar that what we're doing in an audit. The biggest difference is the due diligence is using for another purposes. So at some point in the life cycle of a mine project, so you need to attract investors to pay for the capex for building the mine. So when a company reach that stage, they need to actually attract investors. But the investors, of course, they're not going to take everything that the company give them as a 100% truth. So they want actually third-party people to look and say, can you tell me if what they say is real or there's any flaws in the process or in what they did in the past? And this is what is the art of a due diligence. So due diligence is we review everything, and we look at where is there any flaws? If there's any flaws, what are they? Are they critical or not? And if there's critical, so the investors need to know it because they probably going to change his investment patterns. It's not going to say if the deposit is good or bad. It's really to see if all the works that lead to that point in time was done correctly and following standards and government regulations, just to add a level of confidence for investors. That could be private investors, but that could be government as well. That could be bankings, that could be investment funds. So we do due diligence for a lot of different entities.
So when you're doing the due diligence, then obviously now we're talking about essentially some sort of investment, some sort of capital allocation going towards that operation. So when you get into that now, if you've done the resource estimates or you've done another mine audit on behalf of the company from, let's say, a year before that, is SGS able to then still go in and do these due diligence? Or does it, you have separated it?
No. Usually when you do a due diligence, you need to be completely independent from the process. So if it's a project that we already work in the past, the investor is going to use another company to do the due diligence. So we do due diligence on projects. We can work in some part because we do a lot of testing, so that could be okay because it's laboratory or independent to our services. But say if we work on the resource or the mine planning or the processing plan, we're not going to do a due diligence on that operation.
Yeah. The sort of the last point in that services side, and I think it's one of those things, if you walk through a mining show, you'll see 3D renderings all over the place. But unless you've been to a very specific event where they explain it, it's an easy thing. But I looked at the graph, there's about 1,000 colors on it. For me, for most people they're not going to have a good understanding of even what the 3D modeling is. But it really is a game changer in the industry to be able to put out 3D models in the way that they can now. That technology is advanced. Can you talk a little bit more about it from just sort of the layman's terms? Yeah,
sure. The 3D models, it's probably what actually changed our industry. So, what we mine is a 3D volume. So it's nothing like in 2Ds. And in the past, for the reason that the computer science wasn't there, so it's always, geologists always needs to imagine what is going to look like in 3D. So all our deposit, all the ore is going actually to go in the ground in the 3D way. Now with the powerful tool we've got, so all the different software like Leapfrog, Gemcom, Surpack, Vulcan, name it. So with that, we can actually have some point in our 3D space, we're able to create what we believe is closest possible to the reality, and that would definitely help our job as a geologist. But that definitely help as well the mining engineer business, because they're going to be able to do more efficient mine planning without a very realistic 3D representation of the geology.
This, we've covered actually quite a bit, and I think the second round you sort of it almost becomes a little bit cleaner because we've already kind of talked through this before, having to film it again. But I think now it's so nicely laid out, and I think it's really important for an audience to get an example so that they can actually see it. Is there examples that stand out to you that like a full service example? You kind of did a lot of what we just talked about, and so you sort of make it a tangible thing.
Yeah, sure. I have a good example in mind. That it was a gold project in Africa. So to be more precise, in Mauritania, from a Canadian junior company called All Gold. so we actually worked with that company for almost 5 years. So we actually did the first boot on the ground with that company. So to start the exploration program, help them to build their drill pattern, their surface exploration up to the drilling. And we help them to optimize their drill pattern using machine learning and back then. So even before we've got actually a very full grown resources, so we help them to be more efficient because, machine learning, yes, we use it to create targets, but also to actually create a level of confidence on what we are going to drill. And if you are more confident, you can actually lower the amount of drilling you need to do for the same result. So it's mainly
Right.
cost saving for the clients. And for our goal, actually, we also put what we call an NSPU on site. So we build them actually a testing facility on site so they can be able to have results faster. And we did at the end the resource estimate, and now they are in the process of doing the feasibility study and pre-feasibility study. It's still not an active mine, but they're getting there.
So on that project, are you now? Were you directly involved in that project?
Yes, we're still involved in that project. Yeah, we're still doing updating resources from that project.
So does a project like that, like you personally, does that require going there quite extensively? Are you setting a team? Is it you go there, then your team goes there, then a different team has to go there for the next stage? It must be quite a series of events to actually implement over 5 years.
No, exactly. And we in every project that we involve, we go on the field. So that's mandatory for us to be able to understand a little bit better, to discuss with the people that work on a daily basis on the project. As consultant, of course, we are a little bit outside of the daily operation from the company. So we need to do regular visits just to be sure that what we suggest to the company, it's really what is the most efficient way of doing things. So the amount of time we spend on the field is very variable from project to project. So sometimes it could be 1 or 2 weeks. Sometimes we can send people for months. It's really depending where we are in the life cycle of the project, and depending also to what the clients want from us as well.
How about on the AI side, the machine learning? I mean, I realize a lot of this stuff is quite confidential. So, but are there any projects you can actually give an example of where the machine learning was applied and of course successful?
Yeah, sure. It was probably one of our first very large scale project we did about 3 years ago. It was with North American Palladium at the Lac des Îles mine in Ontario. So now Impala Canada property. We're approached by that company a couple of years ago, like I said, because they actually explore for a long time and they know the deposit pretty well, but they actually realized that the level of discovery getting lower and lower by the years. So they say probably because we always explore in the same way and we haven't trying to create something new for a long time. So they were super keen to say, okay, can we use machine learning and artificial intelligence with our enormous data set, because they have very good quality data sets, and try to think outside of the box and try to discover a new way of exploring a new target. So we jump in that project. It lasts probably around 6 months, and we generate a couple of dozens of targets for them, and some of them were really outside of the box. Let's say they are outside of the main mining area, outside of the type of rock they're usually exploring for. And they wasn't sure at first to say, okay, so we never get any success so following that path, but let's try it. So that's the goal of the exercise. And they drill a couple of the targets on the other side of the actual mining operation, and they discover an amazing amount of palladium in one of their first drill holes on the different type of rock. So for them, it's more discovery, but more important, it's a new way of actually looking at their deposits. So now it's not going to focus just on the way that they explore in the past, but they have new ideas and new elements they can explore. And for them, ultimately, will actually can extend the life of the mine for many, many years if they are able to discover that millions of tons extra with those targets. So that was a very, very good, successful example that it's public, that actually we can discuss with people.
Yeah, I think, no, it's the fun of trying to do interviews about the mining industry. You've got to tap dance around a lot of things. And, it's an industry that, I mean, it's just by the nature of it. It's, we're talking mountains, rugged terrain, especially in Canada. You're talking complex mineral resources and everything like that. And for a third example, is there? I mean, you run into projects where they're not what you think they're going to be. Is there any projects that when I say what's a challenging one, it just sort of snaps to right away that you think of?
Yeah, sure. I'm gonna tap out on the name for this one because it's confidential, but I can actually put a little bit of context out of it. So
So the confidential one is also the one that's challenging. That seems strange.
it is. But you know, the one thing is some of the clients have very specific problems, and
Yeah.
they just don't know how to solve it. And we sometimes we don't know either how to solve it, but we can actually try to work together to discover a solution, doing some R&D with the client. And that specific
Right.
project was regarding machine learning again. But they say we don't want to have targets, Mark. We have actually a very well advanced deposit, but we want to see, can we find some type of patterns between our assay results and our actually mineralogy results using some algorithm to do it. So we want to be able to actually predict the quality of the recovery for the future mine. So that was something we never did in the past. So we had an idea how we can tackle it, but they say we work alongside the client and say, okay, it's going to be a challenging one. We are not sure how we're going to solve that problem, but we are going to try. And we worked for, I think, almost 8 months on that project alongside with the client, doing some R&D and some tests and some better than other. And at the end, actually, we defined a way of work to use different type of algorithm, a series of algorithms to be able to solve their problem. And at the end result, the client was extremely satisfied because it actually answered their problem, it answered their question. So that's the type of challenge we face. And this type of challenge, it's going to us on a regular basis. So as long as the client know that it's not going to be a yes or no answer, or we're not sure we're going to be able to solve that problem, but it's very satisfying for us as a geologist to work on challenging project where we need to start everything from scratch.
When you create that new algorithm, is that now applicable to other projects? Does it ever you solve one problem and realize, oh, that other project that we're working over on the other side of the country or in a completely different country, it can be solved with that? Or is it pretty, in a situation, that particular situation, is it really only applicable to that environment?
In that particular situation, Jared, is something we were able to apply on other type of deposits and other problems. So we're not actually building the solution with always in mind that is it going to be useful for other problems, but most of the time we find some way to do an application to other problems. So in that case, yes, we were able to put that in our offer of services, basically.
Your career, you've gone, I mean, you've worked in a lot of different countries, you've worked for a couple of different companies. How much has the industry changed? Not actually, not so much industry. I mean, more so the technology. You know, when you start, I mean, you've been in the industry 12, 13 years or so, right? How much has the technology and the way you approach problems, how much has that evolved over the last 10, 13 years?
I got to consider myself lucky because I'm young enough to actually always been in the computer age of geology.
Right.
so even when I'm started back in my university days, we already got those powerful tools to do 3D modeling.
Right.
But the way I see actually, what changed probably the most is the use of what we call remote sensing. So we usually do classical exploration. So we go in the field, we break rocks, we look what's inside, we analyze them, and we follow those tracks with very very focus on what we can look inside the rocks. But we actually now use a lot of remote sensing, satellite imaging, hyperspectral. Scanning the core with XRF and hyperspectral again. So there's actually more tools that add over the past decades, and they're always getting better and better. So the quality of the first hyperspectral images was very low, but now we can do actually a very, very good mapping out of those type of technology. Is it changing a lot the way that we actually doing things from a daily basis, from a day-to-day point of view? Probably not that much, because we still focus on drilling and we still focus on building resources. But with more tools, we can do it probably a little bit faster and probably a little bit more efficient than in the past.
You know, and just sort of as we start to to sort of wind our way to the end of the interview, are there some projects in your your career? I mean, for example, the first project that you did overseas and things like that. I mean, are there sort of some projects that stand out for you that you remember fondly, or maybe don't remember fondly, depending on how it went?
Sure, Jared. Probably one of the most interesting project I worked on, it was the Sakatti project in Finland when I was with Anglo American. So this project is in northern Finland, so about 200 miles north of the Arctic Circle, so quite far up north. And I was part of the discovery team in 2009 when we drilled the first drill holes that discovered the massive sulfide. It was a nickel copper PGE deposit. And
Wow.
this was a zone that wasn't a lot very explored in the past, but with a huge level of potential. And part of the discovery team, discovering something, it's very incredible for an exploration geologist. Now this deposit, we are 10 years later and it's close to being in production. So it's going to be a real productive and active mine. But it's a lot because, I know a lot of exploration geologists, and even if they work 30, 40, 50 years in the business, they never discover anything. So if we look at the numbers, it's only one project over 1,000, one exploration project over 1,000 that's going to actually be an operative mine. So you can work on 100 different projects in your career and none of them will become a mine. So I was extremely lucky to be part of a very dedicated team of geologists and scientists that actually put a lot of effort to discover that deposit back then.
It's absolutely insane. Did you just say it was 1 out of 1,000? Did you say exploration
Exactly.
sites?
That's the rule of thumb in the business, 1 over 1,000 project that become an operating mine.
That's insane. Like if you look at stats like entrepreneurial stats and things like that, it's like 80% of businesses fail after 5 years and things like that. 1 out of 1,000. That is, you must love the industry. That's the only way that 1,000 people doing something, knowing that only one person is going to get there. I mean, that's incredibly challenging. It's amazing how the resiliency of, geologists. It's amazing what they've done over the years, and through ups and downs. And is it? Do you think? This is a big question. I realize that, but do you think it's harder now because, of course, there's new technology. There's all these sensors. There's the computers are even more powerful. The algorithms are better. There's more options and all that. But now you also have more challenges of actually getting to even get to the point where you can drill in these locations and do the exploration. And then by the time you actually do prove there's something there, actually getting a mine operational. Do you think it ends up being about the same as it's always been? Or do you think it's actually more challenging now to get a mine up and operating?
It's difficult to answer that question on black or white, but let's say my personal point of view, it's a little bit more difficult these days for multiple reasons. Probably one of the main reasons is it's a business that exists forever. So the first mine, it's back 5,000 years BC. So we have to keep in mind that most of the easy discovery was already being made. So what we're looking for is something that it's deep, that it's undercover, that it's on remote location. So just the logistics of trying to explore these days is more difficult than it was probably 200 years ago. And now in this global world, in the world that's getting more aware of everything, so we need to actually put in first place the social license of operating. So we need to actually to do a lot of works with the people that are living around those mines, the local people, but the native people as well. We need to take care of the environment as well, the safety of the people in the mine. Things that actually wasn't a big priority for the miners of previous centuries. So that actually add a little bit more challenges. But I still believe that it's an industry that get a success rate probably a little bit lower than it was centuries ago. But it's still, the challenge was there back then, because back then they didn't get the fancy tool we've got to help them for discover. Now we have those tools, but we have actually more restrictions.
Right. I guess in the one way it's harder to get going, but once you get going, you have a lot more tools. That they're going back in and they're mining. They're mining tailings ponds and stuff like that again, because there was the actual rate of recovery was so low. just to kind of close it up for SGS, what a company at I wish I could know exactly how many people and what the company size, but I know there's, just from talking to people and going to events, I know there's such a range of people that watch this show from different sides of the company. And you're in the business you're in the business development side. And I'm very interested to know, and especially for our audience, how does a company, 94,000 employees, you've got a global company, a global footprint, but yet when you and I have talked about what it actually takes still for you to get customers and to get into these networks and to build relationships and actually gain contracts. And I really wanted to talk a little bit, just spend a few minutes talking about what SGS has to do on the geological side.
Yeah, sure. Being a very large major global company, so we have the chance to have a very large sales team that work actually worldwide. So that give us the access to a footprint that some smaller company don't have, because we have people almost in every different country. So that help a lot for the business development and the marketing way. But regarding the way that we attract contracts and customers, we do a lot of the classic things of even the smaller companies. So we go to conferences, we do some workshop, we do some presentation. And now with the remote, with the quality of the remote tools we've got, so we can do more webinar, we can do some online training. And one of the important thing in our business is, yes, it's to attract new customers, of course, and we need to meet them and understand what are their problem and how we can help them. But we also need to keep our customers, but just to be sure that we actually deliver very high quality work, so they're going to continue to do business with us over the years and the years, or over many years. So that's also a very key point. And for that, you need to build a real relationship with your client. So you need to be honest. You need to try to understand as much as possible their problem, and that takes time. So you need to speak with your client. You need to spend time on their operation. You need to look at the way that they work, just to be able to help them to achieve their ultimate goal of being as efficient as possible. So we do a lot of classical way of doing things, but now the web helps a lot. So we do a lot of we use social media. So we use a lot of LinkedIn, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram as well. So we're on most of the online platforms. So visibility for us, it's a very big point. So we can actually use those social media tools to show what we are doing good. And then how can we help future clients as well.
Yeah. And it's something, and I've talked to people about it quite a bit. I think when a small company, I think your sort of outward communication can be a little bit overwhelming, because you're trying to run your small company. Of course, bigger companies, like you said, they can invest in having that sort of having people that face outward primarily, which is a huge advantage. But I also think it's important for the smaller companies that are watching this to realize how that the big companies, they are able to attract more people and more customers because they're always in communication. I mean, you coming on this show is an example of it. It's talking directly to people, keeping the communication open, and building those relationships. It doesn't make a difference if you're big or small when it comes down to it.
Totally right.
Well, Marc, thanks again for doing the show. We really do appreciate it. I've tied up your time twice now, but I thought we covered some good stuff, so I really did want to get you back in. So I really do appreciate you coming and doing it all over again with us.
No, it was a pleasure for me, and thank you very much, Jared, for the invitation to doing a second round.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Gowdy will sign you off, telling you where you can support, how you can be a part of the show. We've got Mining Now in partnership with CIM. That's a great production that we're putting on with them. We've got Crownsman Energy, which is focused primarily on the energy sector. That's getting very well received. So there's lots of things to watch in multiple different industries. And of course, we cover transportation and construction and technology and all types of things. So please subscribe. Please keep supporting the show. And let us know if you think somebody that you know should be on our show. Thanks, everybody, and see you on the next episode.
Thank you for watching. Please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn. Also, if you would like to help support the production of the show, please head on over to crownsman.com/donations, where you will find two options, the $5 monthly subscription option and the support heavy industry one-time donation option. Again, that's crownsman.com/donation. Thank you so much for your support, and we will see you on the next episode.